Hello and welcome to the podcast. I have a very, 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 very special guest here with me today who is near and dear to my heart. This is Claire. She is one of my students, and we have chatted back and forth. And I've had the opportunity to support her in her business so many times over like the last 2 years, you would say. And she is just an absolute joy, and I'm so excited to have her on. And she is an expert in Substack. And so that is going to be our conversation today is around that. But I'm actually going to turn the time over to her to give a little bit of her story and how she started her business and how she has become a Substack expert.
Oh, thanks, Maya. It's so nice to be here. I so love that we get to do this. I was just saying, like, this is the first time we've actually met in real time because everything else I've been in the courses or on calls or on asynchronous stuff. So this is so beautiful that we can have this conversation and it feels like a moment. It feels like Substack's having a moment. So, yeah, my background is in festivals and events, actually. And then in the pandemic, when I was pregnant with my daughter, all of my work was cancelled. So I was like, okay, like, what is the next thing that I'm going to do? And I'd always had this vision of speaking to a global audience. So I'd worked abroad and I was curious about having international clients, to be honest, and what that would feel like. So I was really open to opportunities and what might come around. And I found your work and I was working with some mentors about around building a global business and what that might look like. And I think at that time, I wasn't really sure how my skills would transfer to being online. I love to write. I'm a creative producer. I can fundraise. So it was like, how am I going to self express in a way that works for an online audience and is of value to them? So there was a whole lot of experimenting. Lots of mentoring and fun things like that. And then 2022, someone who I really admire, she's called Emma Gannon, she's a UK based author, said that she was starting a Substack. She announced it on Twitter. And I thought, oh, that's interesting. My husband also said, I think me and you should go onto Substack. I think it'd be really nice for us. So, yeah, my daughter was about 2 years old. I decided just to write on Substack. I was really craving a non algorithmic space to just self express. And
Yeah.
so for me, it was this space of, is it a blog? Is it a newsletter? But I already had one in MailChimp. It was like, it's just a space. And so that's what it was back in 2022. So there's a little bit of a potted history there.
I love that. And when did Substack actually launch their platform? Like, was that like, were you like very new on that platform? Like, I guess, were you kind of like a founder of Substack being on the platform at that time?
Yeah, it felt like it for sure. So 2017 was when they launched. And so they were
Okay.
very much a startup when I was there. And I feel like the tech was great. You know, it was great back in 2022, but it was more simple. So it really did just feel like the old blogging days. And people would always reference the old blogging days in my circle. And I don't feel like I really understood what they were. Like I did
Yeah.
have a blog, but I didn't really have that readership. I didn't have that cozy community. And I definitely found that on Substack. So it was really interesting with discoverability back then because they didn't have the social media elements. You just had your posts, you had your publication, and then you had the comments on your posts. And so comments were really thoughtful. The attention economy just seemed really stable. Like it didn't feel like anyone was in a rush. It felt like they'd really read your words. So it was beautiful. And they described it at that time as a platform for writers to get paid. So I was like all in on that. Now it's different. It's shifted. It's evolved. You know, it's a new engine for culture. There's a lot of creators on there. There's video, there's audio, podcasting, there's a social media feed. There's all sorts of things. And I think I've just kept up, really, kept up and evolved my business because I saw an opportunity there as well.
Yeah. So, at what point did you start to grow that Substack and then decide that you wanted to also teach Substack?
Yeah, so it felt like there was this enormous calling where I was on a platform where things were being done a certain way, and there was a bit of a purist mentality to being a writer. So, like a proper writer would use proper grammar and like all of that. And, you know, I mean, my spelling's not always been great. You know, spell check exists for a reason. And I just was a bit like, but what if we added more color? What if we added audio? Like, what if we added some of these other elements that we love to consume? Why does it have to be this purist writers platform? So I started this email series called Stay Creative on Substack, and I used to send it every Friday, and it just got really, really popular. And so that was housed within the publication that I'd started. I was still doing other bits and bobs in my business, but it had this energy about it. So I thought, I'll put a class on. I'll see if anybody wants to come to a class and learn about Substack. I'll explain obviously what it is because people really hadn't heard of it at that point. And
Yeah.
loads of people signed up to the class. And I remember like I was learning from you at that time, and I just was feeling into this place of like, I think this actually is the thing that I'm supposed to do. And I feel so passionate about supporting writers, creatives into a platform where they don't have to pay for a website. They don't have to figure out a complicated WordPress template. They don't have to pay anybody. Like they
Yeah.
can just turn up and write and it's free. And so, yeah, so it was like one of those things where it just outgrew the Friday email that I was sending. And I was like, this is just going to be a whole thing. So it's a publication now called Sparkle on Substack. So it's a weekly newsletter and a membership within that publication. But it honestly went bananas, like from the off. It was just like energetically, it just felt so aligned and so good to do. And I thought I would run out of ideas, but I just never have.
I love that. And that is like, that's been my business journey too. Cause like I was like just posting on social media and then I was, talking about like how to grow on Instagram, no intention of ever like being able to like teach Instagram. I was just something that I was very interested in of like, how is the algorithm working? And like, oh, like this is working and this is not working. And as I shared that, people were like, wait a second, like, you're actually really good at this. And then I was like, wait a second, I am actually really good at this. And then that's kind of how my business started. And so I love that that's your journey as well. Something I'd be curious to know is you said that, it continued to grow and grow and grow, but Substack not being a typical social media platform where, the algorithm is showing your Substack to, large amounts of people and you probably are not going viral. Like, how did you actually grow that? Were you leveraging a different social media platform? Were you leveraging blogs? Like, how were you growing that audience?
Yeah, so inside of Substack, they've got a tool called recommendations. I think Kit have got something similar as well. So
Yeah.
we would recommend the people that we thought our audience would like to read or like to be in community with. And so
Yeah.
that tool really helped me to grow my both of my publications because it kind of compounds over time. So if somebody new came to the platform, learnt from me or liked my writing, they would recommend my publication. And then every time they posted about their Substack on another social media or through that email list, at the point of sign up, people would then also be recommended mine as well. So
Mm.
that helped me grow massively. There is a social media element to it, and I think I am just a natural community builder. Like I worked at grassroots community events and I just love community building. So I've done lots of things where I've brought people together and been like, hey, should we try this? Like, let's do a month-long challenge, let's do a pop-up summit, like let's do all of these different things. And then if people have wanted to work with me, we've got Substack Live now as well. So if people have wanted to work with me, there's been a lot of yeses. So it's felt like my place of work, but it's also felt like because of your teaching, I've had that strategic sort of view on it in terms of how I'm spending my time, because it's so easy to just get busy in replies and busy with service and busy with all the things and then just be like, actually my eyes are just like gonna collapse now. You know what I mean? Like it's like
Yeah.
we've got to be so mindful of the screen time. So I think being so conscious about what I wanted the platform to be, and then
Yeah.
also off platform what I wanted my business to be. So yeah.
No, I love that. And you've always been so strategic in the questions that you've asked too. And I would definitely agree that one of your biggest strengths is community building. And I have learned so much from you and just the ways that you are creating spaces for people to come together and to ask questions. And that really is a skill. That is something that you don't totally have to learn. And so I think that that is definitely one of your superpowers. And I think that that is probably a huge reason why people come to you to learn about Substack because they want that community. And I think that that is something that is very unique about Substack. It is a very tight knit community. Yes, you can build that on platforms like TikTok and like Instagram, but it is a lot harder to do so. Not to say that it's not hard to do on Substack too, but I feel like it's just a different vibe in general. Like when we're talking about short form, TikToks and Reels versus like Substack, where, like you were saying, you do have a different level of people's attention, which I think is in today's world, like that is something to definitely be thinking about is like, how can we get people to stick around, to read our words, to hear what we have to say in a longer format, especially with AI, like kind of taking over short form platforms. I think that every creator now needs to be thinking about like, what is that platform for me where I am going to be able to settle down and build more of that tight knit community, whether that's free or paid, but also being able to earn people's, or I shouldn't say, I guess it's a combination of earning and winning people's attention for a longer span of time. Is there anything that you would have to say about that with like how what you're seeing, especially in 2026 with, AI and people, really craving more of that authentic type of content? And authentic, I don't love that word just because it can mean a lot of different things, and it also is kind of a confusing term, but I feel like that is the best word for me to use here in this sense. But I would love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, I get it totally. And I think that's it, isn't it? Like we can spot captions on Instagram written by ChatGPT. We can also spot articles written on Substack written by Chat. Like it's so obvious, right? And I don't know if that will
Yeah.
always be the case, but I think we've got to that place where we're like, okay, we can use these tools, but actually the real heart and soul of who we are, it needs to be us. Like it needs to be articulated by us. And we need to also observe the environment and the things that we want to say about our environment and those real feelings, because that's the resonance. That's what breaks the fourth wall with our audience. That's what
Yeah.
smashes through the screen and has people being like, oh my goodness, me too. So yeah, so there's a lot going on for us at once, I think, as creators, because if you think about our parents or our grandparents and the way that they were in the world, like they weren't being asked to be plugged into all of this stuff and like look at follow accounts or like reply to all of these endless comments. It's a lot. So
Yeah.
I really like the curatorial side that Substack allows. So you'll see somebody write a beautiful post and invite their audience in, but then paywall the comments. And I think good for them. Like they've been responding on Instagram for like 10 years. Like
Yeah.
they're an incredible writer. They've written best-selling books. Paywall the comments. That's awesome. Like I love that. So I think the model with it is, people come to me and they're like looking for a blueprint. And I have to say, there's no blueprint. What I'm going to get you to do is really listen to your own voice in all of this and evolve, because
Yeah.
that was my journey. Like, I didn't come on being like, this is how I'm going to approach Substack. I just
Yeah.
came on and then expressed myself, and then things kind of ran from there. So, I think there's real value and real reconfirmation of trust in that process, like as a creative process for people. And it's a gift as well. Because, it's like people want to be like, oh, not another platform. Like I already did Blue Sky and like I tried this other. And it's like, no, it's not about that. It's about a whole ecosystem that feels good, that works for business, but also works for self expression and community. And you feeling like you've got some say in what we ring fence, and how to take people deeper in it all. So, yes, you can be strategic. And, if people come to me and they've got a huge Instagram audience, there's definitely a way with that. And there's a way of them taking that permission slip because they love the platforms that they're on.
Yeah.
Like they've built something really special there, but they also want to honor themselves longer term and the legacy for that. There's this really interesting piece at the minute around, I'm not sure how long we're supposed to be subscribed to people for. So I'm just sitting with that question, because it feels like nice to sort of have been on someone's journey with them, whether it's on socials or on Substack. But then it's like, do we hit a point where it's like, I actually don't know anymore? Like maybe I need to make space for 3 new people, or maybe I will be subscribed to this person for the rest of my life, but none of us really know that yet. So I'm
Yeah.
really curious about that, because I think it also pushes back on the amount of content that we've been asked to create on social to like
Yeah.
do well.
Yep.
We don't have to do that on Substack, and we don't have to do that in life. I think we think that we do. So I'm
Yeah.
really interested in that space too.
No, I love all of those thoughts. Something that you mentioned was, if you do have a bigger audience on Instagram, leveraging that to grow your Substack. And I feel like for me, being in like a lot of what the algorithm on Instagram is feeding me is other Instagram experts, other business coaches who do have relatively large audiences, and they're moving over to Substack and they're leveraging that. And one person in particular, I followed her journey now, and I think she's been on Substack for around a year, and she's really, really amazing. All of her content on Instagram is amazing. And when she moved over to Substack, I don't quote me on this, but I want to say she made within like she had built within the first like 3 months of moving over to the platform up to like a $20,000 a monthly recurring revenue from being on Substack and using the paywall inside of Substack. And that is obviously like really amazing. And I totally believe, obviously, the fact that she's made that amount of money. But what I feel like there's almost like this barrier to people joining Substack because they're like, well, you know, they look at people like her who are moving to Substack and saying, "Hey, move over to Substack. You can make all this money." But I think there's almost two layers there. Number one, that it's not just about the money, but also number two, like they're looking at people who have these huge audiences, and they're like, "Well, of course she's going to move over there and make that amount of money because she has 100,000, 200,000, 300,000 followers." And so, what would you say in terms of, people who are on Instagram and they love the platform of Instagram? They don't necessarily love like you were saying, the constant creation and creation and creation and creation. Like they still want to be on Instagram, but they don't have a huge audience. And so then they're thinking about Substack, and they're thinking, well, I don't have, a huge audience on Instagram to leverage to grow my Substack, and I don't want to be on another platform just to be on another platform. What would you say to that person?
Yeah, I think that's such a good question. And, because I've been building there a while and I've worked with lots of people, I see the other side of it as well, like the other side of the dashboard and what's going on. So, creators pay Substack 10% of everything they earn. So, obviously, at scale, that is a lot of money that you are giving to Substack for exactly the same service, right? So, like, if you're building for yourself and you're building for your business, you really need to think that through, because it's great to say that's 20,000 monthly recurring revenue, but how long is that going to recur for, right? So you would teach us that inside of scalability. You'd be like, okay, like, how are we looking at this? Like, what is this looking at longer term? Because
Yeah.
there's a strange economy inside of Substack where a paid newsletter, is anywhere between maybe like $5 and $10 a month, maybe
Yep.
like $50 to $100 a year. It's low. And so the
Hmm.
information that you might be giving away in there could be written, could be video, could be audio. And people in my circles, what they've felt is, well, I just need to do more. So if they're not doing audio, they'll do audio. If they're not doing video, they'll do video. And I'm looking at it going, but that's like a course, right? Like you've just created a course, but you've drip fed
Yeah.
it through your paid newsletter, and those economies don't make any sense. So I think there's this really interesting piece, and we had this breakthrough in scalability when we were chatting about it, because I didn't see my Substack as my low ticket. Like I just hadn't really clocked that that was what was going on, because it
Yeah.
was really fruitful and I was serving people in all the ways, but I was also on the road to burnout. It was insane, the amount that was coming in and the amount that I was holding. Whereas now my business ecosystem all links up and talks to each other, and it just feels far more sustainable. So there's definitely that piece. And I think people will always have shiny object syndrome, but you've got to ask yourself, if subscriptions are forever, like until one of you turns it off, either the person subscribing or you, like what does that mean to you? Like what do you want to do forever? Like, is that 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Like what are we doing here? Because
Yeah.
just because something sounds good does not mean it feels good. So yeah, so that's like my point on the bigger stuff, because it can look really shiny and impressive, but all you've done is a launch. Like you don't know how long that's going to last. So
Yeah.
I'm 4 years in now, so I know how long this lasts. Like I'm in it, like year one,
Yeah.
year two. Like I think I thought in my head, for the membership, it'll probably be about 8 months and the monthlies would churn. It's much lower than that. The annuals tend to stay another year. So it's like one of those weird things with memberships, isn't it? How it all plays out. And mine
Yeah.
definitely is a membership on Substack, whereas, the paid newsletter model is different. But for the people who are looking for something different, which is a quieter space, more of the attention economy that we've spoken about, and more of this intimacy with our audience, and actually people who can really get to know that audience. Like you can see what they're reading, you can click on their profile and really understand what they're about. You're not trying to decipher it through a highlights reel like Instagram offers. You actually see like the nitty gritty of it all. And even some of the massive creators like Jenna Kuch has been on the platform a couple of months now. Like I feel like I know Jenna more than I ever have. Like I don't know Jenna, she's not my mate, but like I'm just like, oh wow, like Jenna feels like this about this particular topic, so and that's because of the attention economy and the longer form writing that's possible.
Yeah.
And it does feel like we as entrepreneurs and creatives have been waiting for this. We have been waiting for a space where we don't have to perform, we can self-express, and people meet us at that place. So that's what I feel. I'm quite evangelical about it though, Maya, as you know.
No, I love that. There was something that you said that I want to circle back to. You said economies like this don't make sense. And you were referring to having, video and audio and written. Can you expand on that a little bit more? Because you were talking about, the 10% that Substack takes. Are you saying that, it doesn't make sense to have that on Substack because that is basically a course and you might as well host that off of the platform of Substack? Can you just expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So everybody will have like a standard conversion rate between free and paid. So the
Yep.
average is between sort of 2 to 5%, and that's what I see and what my colleagues who also do this work see. Substack haven't put those numbers out for a while, but sometimes there'll be a higher conversion percentage, and then the creator wants to keep that conversion. So, like 10% of their subscribers are converting to paid, and that's sort of
Yeah.
staying steady. So, like, that's a stat people try and look at. But in reality, like, you would need your free subscribers to go up and then everything else to stay steady, and the conversion and the nurture to all kind of work within that. And I think this is the mistake people make. So after a little while of doing the work and loving the work, they're like, well, I want to reward my community more. I want to give them more. Like, I want to do more. I want more paid. I want that conversion to be higher. And that's like the shiny object syndrome, where you haven't looked at the stats and the figures behind it all. Because actually, if you're feeling compelled to offer something as a business owner, then that should look different. That should be okay. Like, if at scale, that's so bestseller is something that people really want when they come to the platform. So that's 101 paid, and then you get a special check mark for that, and then you get 1,001 paid. So I was on my way to 1,001 paid, and I was like, wait a minute, like, what am I actually doing here? Because all of the work that I was doing to get there was exhausting. And because I am really high touch and I love that in my business, I'm like, I just do a course over here and make 5 times as much money and give people exactly what they want, but in a more intimate container, which means more to me. So I think it is really understanding your business model and how you want Substack to fit within it, because it doesn't have to. It can be lead generation for sure, and it can be low ticket for sure, but I don't feel like low ticket, high volume makes sense on Substack, because you're building it all as you go, and you don't know how long people are going to want to stay for. None of us do, because it's a brand new model. So I just think there's a bit of a cautiousness there. And then I've just seen a lot of people burn out, Maya, and you've probably seen the same. And it just makes me really sad, because I don't think anybody particularly asked for more. The person just hadn't quite got the self-worth to a place where they realized that they didn't have to do more to get more.
Yeah. No, for sure. Wow, that was powerful for sure. And something that I'm not gonna lie to you, I have been very hesitant about Substack for mainly the main reason for me has been the 10% that they take. Because I think about, what like I think, as a newer creator, you're looking at a platform that is free, and I say free with air quotes for those of you who are listening on the podcast, because they are taking 10%. And so I think that there is that appeal to it where, if we're looking at a platform like Kajabi or Podia or Teachable or whatever, like where you have to actually pay to utilize that platform, like I think there is definitely, like, if we're looking at it from like a monetization perspective and not from like a community building or a lead generation perspective, just strictly from monetization, I think that there is that appeal to Substack because you are getting in for free. But then I think about exactly what you're saying, as you scale this low ticket to high volume, which is like kind of the dream that's being sold right now, at least in my space, what I'm hearing with Substack is that dream of, like, let's scale this, low ticket to high volume, which I see a lot of things there. Number one, doing high volume is really, really hard. Like high volume, high visibility, that is a really hard game to play. It doesn't matter if we're talking about Substack. It just, in general, it's a really hard game to play. Not a lot of people win at it. But also too, like that 10%, like that for me has been like a huge hang up of like, why would I give that 10% to Substack when I could, be on a platform like Podia, like Teachable, like Kajabi, where if I'm looking at it like on a year in, year out basis, like I'm paying way, way, way less in a subscription to a platform and making so much more. And I'm also being able to really customize more of the experience because Substack is really designed to be more of like that newsletter written platform. Yes, like you said, there is the audio, there is the video, but like Substack is not optimized for that, in the sense of like it's not built to be a course platform, right? And so I
No.
think that for me has kind of been like the hang up of like how does this fit into like my ecosystem, because I do have memberships on other platforms. And so like for me, that has always kind of been like that holdup of like, but like, wait a second, where does this fit? You know, if I'm not going to join Substack to do the low ticket, high volume, like where does that fit in? And now, you know, as I'm talking to you and the more that I've looked into Substack over the last, you know, 2 or 3 months, and actually even have a sticky note right here on my computer of like things that I want to talk about on Substack, because I do want to launch my Substack. I'm really recognizing that it is more of a lead gen platform, and exactly what I was talking about earlier, where we were talking about, you know, this earned attention and winning people's attention and having a space where you can communicate with people in longer format. Like that for me is kind of the appeal now for Substack.
Yeah, definitely. And there's the email economy piece of it because people with Substacks are sending emails, right? So then you've got to work out as a business owner, okay, well, if I already send a weekly email though, and then this is another one, and that same person is subscribed to both, like how does that piece of it work? There's
Yeah.
also the piece that people can disable email completely. So people can
Hmm.
have an app based experience. So I have an app based experience and I have had an app based experience for like 2 years, maybe longer, because I would go insane. Like literally, that would be so much email to
Yeah.
deal with. So mine is all on the app. So mine is like it's a social media experience really, but obviously as a creator I go onto my laptop and I create my posts. And last week I did a video post that did really really well. So Substack video pulls through to YouTube, so that's how I'm growing my YouTube channel. So every time I do a live, the feed gets pulled through to YouTube and it auto creates YouTube shorts. And then I can see with those shorts, okay, like which one did better. And I can just repost that to trial reels. So, like, it's a
Hmm.
bit slapdash, but obviously it's that piece of going, well, I'm not creating content for like 17 different platforms. I don't even know whether there are 17, but I'm just thinking
Yeah.
about, okay, like if people are searching hashtag Substack on Instagram, like mine might come up and that might be interesting to them. And it does happen. So, I think there are those tools within the platform that are really cool that I really like to use. But
Yeah.
there's definitely that piece of like, don't just have one to have one, like just have your presence there so you can be tagged and stuff, because that sort of stuff is going on. And
Yeah.
then work out what you want it to be. There's definitely this clash of the entrepreneur, like the seven-figure founders have like come in and are like trying to like teach everyone how to do it, but they're not telling everyone that they've had a successful business for like 20 years before that, so it's like that weird space at the moment that everyone's complaining about because people genuinely just want to read words, like that's what they're there for.
Yeah.
So it is interesting because I think every platform has potential, but not every platform has potential for your business. Like sometimes we've just got to be a
Hmm.
bit like, you know what, like that's not the one for me right now. Like we don't need to have FOMO. We can just decide.
Yeah.
And also like as a reader and a listener of other people's work, maybe that's a lovely thing. Like I definitely feel like there's a lot of pleasure on Substack for me as a reader. Like it's a beautiful space to read really well thought out writing. It's a beautiful space to listen to people read their own writing. Like I really like that stuff. And for me, like I've got a lot of colleagues that have Substack front and center in their businesses, so it feels nice in that way as well. Like I feel like we've built it together, so that feels pretty special.
I love that. You said not every platform makes sense for you. Who would you say, and maybe you don't have something off the top of your head, but like for Substack in particular, like is there any type of business, any maybe product that people are selling, maybe even a specific niche where you're like Substack just simply might not make sense? Or is it more so like a individual internal, like the way that you want your ecosystem and your business to work and to feel, like that's kind of more of how Substack doesn't fit in? Like can you expand on that a little bit more?
Yeah, so I've definitely worked with some clients that have tried the paid newsletter thing. And actually, what was really difficult for them was educating their email subscribers, who are really busy people in their own right, on how to use Substack. So that was a real
Mm.
block. And then so they tried it on Substack and they moved to school instead. And they just love the community elements of school.
Yeah.
So they wanted to do it, right? So like that's what they want. They came to me for. They wanted to do it. But then in doing it and having all the admin, because there's admin with everything, and this is the low ticket argument as well. I'm like, yes, low ticket, high volume, but that's a lot of admin, guys. Like you're going to get emails all over the place about all of the things. Like people
Yeah.
get so confused so easily, especially with Substack. And also because once Substack has the email address, so obviously we gather the email addresses, but Substack also has them. Substack can email them, and people get really annoyed about that. So if they're subscribing
Mm.
to you, like, and this is the only place you have, say it's like you're treating it like a blog or you're treating it like an email sort of platform, and then they start getting emails from Substack about all this other stuff that Substack are doing, or all
Yeah.
these other people on the platform. People are like, wait, what? Like, that would be so weird if like Flowdesk just started emailing me about what this other creator was doing. So it's a totally different
Mm.
engine.
Yeah.
But sometimes people see things they don't want to see. It's like any platform, right? Like we've really got to curate those feeds for our nervous system and our sanity. So I think it's just going in with your eyes open and being like, okay, as a business owner, this is how I see it, but also as someone who wants to connect online and creatively express. And we know that business and personal can like blend as well. Like maybe there's something interesting there. So I definitely always encourage people to self express first and then bring the business layers into it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people are just hungry for that bestseller check mark. And I, I don't know, like I've got a bit cynical over the years because I'm just like, like it's not like winning the lottery, right? Like it just means you've got 101 people paying you. Like that's
Yeah.
it. Like I don't know, like obviously that is amazing. Like that is an incredible thing to have 101 people paying you, and people might be listening being like that would be amazing, and it is amazing, it totally is. But then as soon as that happens, people are like, oh, now what? Because what if they leave, and when will they leave, and then I've got to replace them. So
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's that piece, isn't it? Like loving the life that you're in and then loving the extension of what online is in relation to that life. Like this is me as a writer speaking, but it's like it's got to make sense.
Yeah, no, I love that. Something that you mentioned was email versus app experience. Can you expand upon that a little bit more for someone who's not super familiar with Substack? Like, what does that look like? You were saying, you've been app based for 2 years now.
Mm.
What does that mean?
So I just turn all of the notifications off. So you can just toggle. It used to be called smart notifications. I think they've called it something else now, but you just toggle all of those notifications off. So I don't get any emails from anybody that writes on Substack or Substack themselves. I just
Mm,
have an app based experience where I read newsletters, like I can listen to stuff on there. I can join in with notes, which is Substack's inbuilt social media. I can press go live and go live with a colleague, and have people watch that. So for me that makes more sense. And then as a curator and a creator, I open my laptop and go to work. Like so it's like I think it's that boundaries piece as well. Like I tend to
mm,
be social on my phone and like reading things, but then when it's me in the driving seat and it's about me and my business and my self-expression and like collaborations and all that stuff, it's like a desktop based experience. But yeah, people will often say I'm so overwhelmed with all the emails, and I'm like, you can just turn them off. So but then again, creators don't like that, because then if someone's turned off their emails and they've moved that email newsletter to Substack, but someone's having an app based experience, that, it kind of muddies that water as well.
yeah. Can you talk more about, like you were saying before, if you have an email list and then you come over to Substack, now you're trying to think about how do I integrate Substack, or like what do I do with my email list? Can you talk about, for someone who is listening and someone even like me, but I would say majority of people who are listening, they already have an existing email list, whether that is through Kit or through Flowdesk or through even maybe their platform like Kajabi or whatever. What would you say is like a really great strategy? And I know it's going to totally vary based off of each person, but like for someone who's coming into Substack with an email list, like what do you generally recommend?
Yeah. So as a business owner and working with business owners, we need the email list that links to the CRM. So I always talk about this CRM being customer relationship manager. So I can see what my customers have bought inside of Podia. I can email them, I can tag them, I can have them run through nurture sequences. I can understand their behaviors, right? Like
Yeah.
that's all on there. And then with Substack, obviously it's more complicated for me because I've chosen it to run my membership from, because my membership is about Substack. I always say if I didn't
Yeah.
run a membership about Substack, it wouldn't be on Substack, it would be on Podia, because I've already got that system. So
Yeah.
for me, it's about, okay, like those are the emails that are to my customers. And then I still do lead gen through like lead magnets and like free classes and stuff that people can sign up to on my website. But I also have those in my Substack welcome email as a business owner who runs a membership site. I've also got a paid newsletter on Substack, and that is very different. So for me, that is just a space that people can gather around. And I do see it as that community space, and people can pay to be part of the paywalled comments or like paywalled content and stuff that I have there. So that's probably more similar to people who have their business elsewhere and want to self-express and do something for community inside of Substack. Um, there's also that piece within Substack that people get really excited about paying for multiple Substack publications because it's new and it's shiny and it's like, oh, I really just want to read behind the paywall. Like people are really good at leaving us hanging and then wanting us to cross over or,
Yeah.
value stacking. So it just sounds so good. Like if you join now, it's 50% off and blah, blah, blah. And then the subscription overwhelm happens where they're like, what it is like, it's like, why am I signed up to all of these things? So there's definitely that piece in our audience that I think that it's interesting for me to measure, because as a business owner, if they come not through Substack, it's actually better for me as a business owner to guide them through my resources. But if they're
Mm,
already inside of Substack, they've already signed up to a ton of things, and they usually
yeah.
come into me when they're quite overwhelmed. They've been trying to start their own thing, like they've got too many voices in their head, they've
Yep.
read too much amazing writing, and then they've got imposter syndrome. So there's all those bits as well.
No, that's super interesting. So would you say, like, for me, for example, where I've had my newsletter list, I have a lot of subscribers, to keep my newsletter list as is and then do Substack on top of that, or basically use Substack as a replacement?
Yeah, no, definitely not a replacement for you, because I feel like you've got something really special that works and works really, really well. So like that storytelling that you do in your weekly newsletters, which I read like and love, I feel like that works so well, and it is all building towards an ecosystem that you have. Like it's not random. Like those stories mean something to us as business owners receiving them. So
Yeah.
that is already its own ecosystem, and I feel like Substack for you, I mean, it depends, because sometimes people will just be like, I just want to write about homesteading, or I just want to write about home educating. And it's like
Yeah.
not to do with business, but it's like a place to talk about the same topic and just see where it
Mm.
goes. There's
Yeah.
this beautiful invitation to not have it all figured out and to be like, I have felt called to write poetry, to like record some audio voice notes from my walks, like whatever it
Yeah.
is that is just different to the
Yeah.
strategy that we have for business. So maybe
Mm.
that. And I do see that with some of the entrepreneurs that have come onto the platform. It's been really interesting to me because oftentimes, Substack will invite people to come onto the platform. And in the olden days, they would get like a six-figure package to come onto the platform to bring their newsletter subscribers with them and to be
Interesting.
supported to grow. And then they could decide, like after a year, what they wanted to do. Whereas now the teams support them in acquisition for sure, but there are a lot of people just coming anyway, right? Because it's gone more mainstream and they've heard about it, but they're going, I just want to write. Like, I'm not telling you it's on a Tuesday. I'm not telling you it's twice a week or once a month. Like, I
Yeah.
just want to write. Like, I'm having this human experience of wanting to write here and now. And some of those people have blogged before and I've read their blogs and stuff. But other times it's like, wow, you just had an awakening and like, this is who you are. So I love that, because I just think it means so much more, like it
Yeah.
just feels like we're constantly evolving, aren't we, in terms of how we consume the internet. But it feels like a special time to be on there when someone's like, I just had to write this and send it out today. I'm like, oh, good. What is it?
No, I love that so much. More of, like you've been saying, just that self-expression platform. And
I
if that
think
is,
so.
not even necessarily like looking at like what are my content pillars and like what offers,
Mhm.
is more of just like what do I want to talk about? And if that doesn't apply to my business, like it's okay. And like that, I think that also is so unique too, because like you were saying with Jenna earlier, you feel like you know her on a level that you've never known her before. And I don't
Right.
know what she's talking about on Substack.
Yeah.
I haven't read any of her Substacks, but it's probably due to the fact that she's probably talking about things on there that she didn't talk about, on her podcast or on Instagram, where, she has more of like the content pillars to be following and like the things that you
Mm.
really have to do on platforms like Instagram and TikTok in order to be successful. Whereas like Substack, you do have that like more um ability and freedom to have that creative expression because it isn't so algorithmic based, which I think is really really cool. And something I would love to hear more about from you is, since you have worked with so many students and helped them to grow their Substack. What is like a case study for you that kind of stands out as like really something that was either like really cool or like really unique that you were able to help this student achieve?
Yeah, I love that. And I think for me, it's that piece of being properly paid. Like, there's definitely those glimmers that come in where someone just feels like they are being properly paid for their words, and that means a lot. So, some of my clients have, like, written beautiful long captions on Instagram for years and then continued in the comments times four. Like, that's been where they've poured everything into. And then
Yeah.
because tech was a bit of a barrier and it was like Instagram was easy and people were on there, and then they
Yep.
felt so sad when things changed and the people that followed them weren't seeing their stuff. So that has been so refreshing for them. And then for them to achieve like bestseller status at like over 1,000 paid subscribers, just being able to do what they love, like that is amazing for sure.
Yeah.
And then also I think when people figure out the pieces, right? So I've gone on that journey myself, and like as a self-confessed multi passionate, like I am passionate about lots of things, and I do love creative pop-up projects and collaborations and all this stuff. So like being able to have a platform that makes that easy, like
Yeah.
to message someone and say, do you want to do a live, and for them to say yes and not to have to wait to like podcast and for the podcast to be edited and all that. Like I love the
Yeah.
instant nature of that stuff, and I know that's helped a lot of people get through imposter syndrome or like feeling like they waited too long to like do the internet or whatever, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, the bestseller check mark always feels really nice when people get it and they want it, and then the stability that comes after that and how they're fueling everything. When people have notes go viral and it's been about something that they were really passionate about, and like there's 20,000 likes on it and they've only ever had an audience of like a couple of thousand people, it's like it's really big to support people in that,
Yeah.
and to support them out of the other side as well. And then when posts go viral, so posts can go viral as well. And we can just have tons and tons of people gather around a post. So one of my colleagues, Amy McNeish, she's called, she's so cool. She's an artist and a writer. She had 3 books out last year, all with different publishers. It was insane. But she wrote an article that went viral on Substack, and now it's the name of a book, but for like an indie publisher. They're so cute. So like speaking to them about the process of that and understanding how that came about and how that commission was and all of that. Like she's not a client, she's a colleague, right? But I'm just so excited for them that exists,
Yeah.
that we can make art and we can stop sort of second guessing what that needs to look like. And like I'm a big fan of art in the places that we are. I live rurally, I don't live near any big galleries or theaters anymore. So being able to read something that truly moves me by someone that is in my membership, like I just love that. I just think it's gorgeous.
I love that so much. And to me, I don't know, maybe hopefully listeners are feeling this way too, but like it almost feels like just like a place of like just like calm of like
Mm-hmm.
people are there to like actually support people, and like they're not there to just like chase the algorithm. And like of course there's going to be people who are on there to like chase, like you said, the bestseller status
Mm-hmm.
because they want to make money and whatnot. But I love that it is like that platform of like just everything that you're saying. I'm like people are actually there for community, and like
Yeah.
for community to just have community and not to have community to then like build their business, if that makes sense. And not to say that there's anything wrong with that, but I feel like in a way Instagram has become this very like business platform of like everything is so strategic down to like the amount of time that you're spending in the comments, because like you want to make sure that you can scale your business. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, and like I obviously am on the platform and that's what I teach,
Mm.
but I love that there is this opportunity for us as creatives to be on a platform where we can have more earned attention, and just being able to have that like platform of self-expression I think is so powerful. The last question that I would love for you to answer, and something that I have been thinking about myself when it comes to Substack, is it too late to be on the platform of Substack? And like do you feel like especially having been on the platform now for like what you said 4 years,
Mm.
do you feel like this is still a very new platform? Like if we're comparing this to like Instagram's journey, Instagram having been around now for so many years and people wishing like, oh, I wish I had been on Instagram, 5 years ago. Like, do you think that we're going to look back and like on Substack in 4 or 5 years from now and been like, oh, that was like the people who are on Substack today are like those founding people? Or do you feel like we're kind of moving past that, not to say that there's not a good time, like people should still hop on Substack, obviously. But
Mhm.
like, I just be curious to know like what your thoughts are, having been on the platform for so long. Do you feel like this is still a very like new foundational platform?
Yeah, and like they describe it, the founders describe it as like building the plane while we're like inside of it while it's
Yeah,
flying, right? And you're like, wait,
yeah,
what? What are we
yeah,
doing? What are we all doing together? So yeah, so it's really interesting. Like I do have like I feel like I do have like I'm rooting for them, you know, I'm rooting for this
yeah,
to go well, but I think we're at like 50 million on Substack, and then I think it's like, is it like 2 billion or something on Instagram? I don't
yeah,
even know like
something
how many
crazy like
users.
that.
Like
Yeah,
so the mainstream elements that you see is it's like not what you'd expect. So there are celebrities, but they're celebrities that have written like books, right? And they're like, who, you know, and then there's like top journalists, but they're top journalists that are really burnt out in their career in
yeah,
traditional media. So it's like, yes, those people, you will see those names. And it was nice when it was quieter because we didn't have the same levels of imposter syndrome. But hopefully, if you're doing the self development work and the nervous system work, you'll work through that and know that you're here to share a voice that is uniquely yours. So,
yeah,
like, now is good, next week is good, next year is good, like, whenever, you know, like it all happens in the right way. And I think you just got to trust that instinct. Like, it's good to claim your handle for sure. Like, you know, in the Twitter days where like nobody really, you know, we came to it a bit late and we're like, wait, how do we get our handle? Like, what is all
yeah,
that thing? I think we've learned from the internet, like, it's good to get your handle that is your name.
yeah.
Like Jenna hasn't even got that, you know, I think she has to have a number one after her name. I think I noticed. I was like, oh,
That's
you
so
know, like,
funny.
right? But somebody probably just took it and was like, I'll have that, thanks. Or maybe someone else
Yeah,
called that. I don't know. But I think it's good to have your handle and have like a presence, like a shop window there, because I've seen creators have that. Like, I love Rebecca Campbell. She's a spiritual teacher and she had a profile there, but nothing else for ages. And now she's one of the people who's like, I wanted to write this for you today. Like, and it doesn't link to any, you know, it doesn't link to
yeah.
anything else she's selling. She just wanted to write the thing. So I think that's a good move. And I think being a reader on there and heavily curating what you are reading, like we should be doing that anyway, right? Online, but just being like in these inspiring places or these places that you genuinely want to read, like whether that's about farmsteads or home renovations or, you know, whatever it's about, there's all the
Yeah.
categories on there to browse through. I think that's the thing to do, and understand what it is, and then like come to your creative self and work that out. And you know, I've got tons of resources for that, they are there, but those resources are only going to help you if you feel compelled to self express anyway, like, or if you feel compelled to make it fit with your business. Like,
Yeah.
there's nothing you need to learn before you start, you just start.
I love that. Can you talk a little bit more about what resources you have available for people and where they can find you? And I'll make sure all this is linked down in the show notes as well for those who are listening. But I would love to hear more about those resources for people who are wanting to dive into Substack.
Oh, for sure. Well, it's really funny because I'll put it back to you because you've got an amazing course called Stacked Inbox, and I've got a little guest training in there. It is blowing my mind. This is like the training that I've always needed. So
Oh,
I did
yay.
a little pop-up class inside of there about paid newsletters, right? So that exists. But I think for
Yep.
business owners, like, they need to be inside of that course because nobody has ever explained it to me like this before. Nobody has helped me understand how everything needs to work when it comes to email and like people that those emails are being received with. Like, I've got some of that from audience development, but it's amazing. It's so, so, so good. So yeah,
Oh my gosh. I'm
definitely.
like, I'm gonna like start crying over here.
But it
Thank
is,
you.
Maya, it's amazing. Like,
I did not
I've
prompt her to
tried
say
to
that.
do this. I've tried to do this so many times, like, and it just couldn't click. And I had so much like so many blocks around the instant energy that I like to run with, and I couldn't make it work. And now I can. So thank you so much. And it's not, I mean, I'm still going through it. So thank you for that. So that's there. So like definitely that. But then after taking on all the things that I've said, and really coming back to yourself, I do have Sparkle on Substack, so I'll publish there weekly. There's usually something free weekly to read, or there's the archive there if you want to go into that. And then if you are more of a course-based person or you like consults, I do those too. So you can head over to my website, which is Creatively Conscious, so that's my business name. And Maya can link all of that below for you. But yeah, I'd love to see you. I'd love to chat to you about what you'd like Substack to be for you. Like, I feel like we're just at the point in life where we can wave our own magic wands. Like, I know that sounds really cheesy, but it's like we've learned enough, guys. Like, yes, it's another platform, but it's not that deep. Like, we understand the internet. It's just another version of what's possible online.
I love that so much. This conversation has been so good. Thank you for your wisdom. Thank you for just sharing your heart. I absolutely love you to death, and I appreciate you and your time and just coming on here and just sharing your journey with us. You are such a beautiful human, and I'm just so grateful for you.
Oh, same. Thanks, Maya.